Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the 5-Minute English Practice. I'm Jessica, and I'm really glad you're spending a few minutes with me today. If you're learning English and you feel comfortable reading or listening, but when it's time to speak, everything suddenly feels difficult, this episode is for you. Maybe you know the words in your head, but your mouth doesn't want to move. Maybe you're afraid of making mistakes, or you feel like your English sounds strange, slow, or not natural enough. If that sounds familiar, trust me, you're not alone. A lot of people believe that speaking English well is about talent or confidence, but in reality, it's mostly about habits. And many of the habits we have when learning English actually make speaking harder, not easier. One of the most common problems I see is that learners wait until they feel ready to speak. They tell themselves they need more vocabulary, better grammar, or better pronunciation first. So they keep studying, listening, reading, and preparing, but they don't actually speak. The problem is that feeling of being ready almost never comes. Speaking is not something you prepare for and then suddenly do perfectly. Speaking itself is the practice. If you don't use your voice, your speaking skills don't grow. Another thing that holds many learners back is the idea of perfect English. When you try to speak perfectly, your mind becomes very busy. You think about grammar rules, word order, pronunciation, and at the same time, you try to sound natural. That's a lot of pressure. Because of that pressure, many people speak very slowly, stop in the middle of sentences, or decide not to speak at all. But the truth is, perfect English is not the goal. Communication is the goal. If people understand what you mean, you're doing a good job. I also noticed that many learners depend too much on books when they want to improve speaking. Books are helpful, but spoken English doesn't sound like written English. In real life, people speak in shorter sentences. They change their ideas in the middle. They use simple words and common expressions. If you only learn English from books, your speaking may sound very formal or unnatural, even if it's grammatically correct. Another habit that makes speaking difficult is translating everything in your head. When you think in your own language first and then try to turn that sentence into English, speaking becomes slow and stressful. English has a different way of expressing ideas, and when you translate directly, your sentences often sound unnatural. A much better approach is to think in simple English. You don't need long or complicated sentences to express yourself. Clear, simple English is strong English. One big reason speaking doesn't improve is that many learners don't actually practice speaking every day. They listen to podcasts, watch videos, and feel like they're learning, but speaking is a physical skill. Your mouth and brain need training. If you don't practice regularly, speaking will always feel uncomfortable. Even a few minutes a day can make a big difference. Something that helps a lot and that many people avoid is talking to yourself. It may feel strange at first, but it's one of the safest and most effective ways to practice speaking. There is no pressure, no judgment, and no fear of making mistakes. You can talk about your day, your plans, or your opinions. This kind of practice helps your brain get used to producing English naturally. Another important part of improving speaking is learning phrases instead of single words. When you learn full expressions that people actually use, your speaking becomes faster and more natural. You don't need to build every sentence from zero. Your brain already has ready-to-use language, and that builds confidence. Many learners also avoid listening to their own voice in English because it feels uncomfortable. But recording yourself can be very powerful. When you listen back, you start to notice your pronunciation, your rhythm, and how clear your message is. Over time, you can hear your improvement, and that's very motivating. It's also important to change how you think about mistakes. Mistakes are not something to be afraid of. They are part of the learning process. Every time you make a mistake, you learn something new. The real problem is staying silent because you're afraid of making mistakes. Speaking with mistakes is always better than not speaking at all. Finally, remember that you don't need to speak fast to speak well. Many learners think speed equals fluency, but that's not true. Speaking clearly, calmly, and confidently is much more important. Pauses are normal. Thinking before you speak is normal. Slow English can still be very good English. Improving your English speaking skills doesn't happen overnight. It happens through small, simple habits done consistently. You don't need perfect grammar, a big vocabulary, or a native accent to start speaking better. You just need to start using your voice and allow yourself to learn through experience. If this episode was helpful for you, I'd really appreciate it if you liked, followed, or subscribed to the podcast so you don't miss future episodes. And I'd love to hear from you. What do you find most difficult about speaking English right now? Is it confidence, pronunciation, or finding the right words? You can share your thoughts in the comments or message me. Thank you so much for listening today. Keep practicing, be kind to yourself, and I'll talk to you again very soon.